Here we go into Bitcoin, as always, starting off with the king, the one coin to rule them all. And I really do feel like that is going to become a lot more important in these next few months to come, as Bitcoin does kind of generally get the market direction proper here. And if Bitcoin does continue on with the overall long-term dump-off party, well, I would expect that altcoins continue to give up a lot of their market cap into Bitcoin, as represented by the Bitcoin dominance right here. I do not necessarily love Bitcoin dominance as an overall metric, but we are starting to see it really put in a base at that 40%. So I do think that altcoin versus Bitcoins in general, for especially the weaker ones, which is 95% of them, are probably not going to be having the best time with that. Anyways, Fear Ingredient Index also at a 12 right now as well. Even with Bitcoin taking out the short-term, medium-term time frame range highs, which is good and does allow for that next move up. But today is a very, 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 very critical day, because it is Jay Powell day. It is Jay fucking Powell day. He's gonna speak again, kind of let his thoughts be known, and the FOMC coming in a little bit later today as well. I believe it's around 1, if memory serves me correctly, it's 1 or 2 p.m. I believe it's 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or it's 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. I do remember when I used to be in Chicago, yeah, it was I'm very confident it was 1 p.m. So fair enough, be aware of that event, because going into that event, around the time of that event for the next 15 to 30 minutes, you're probably going to see an extreme amount of volatility in both directions. And there's probably going to be some very easy trades on the peripheries of those moves. So that's what I really want to be focusing on today, and then talk about what actually matters when price action settles for the higher term time frame closures, and how that can kind of bleed into the analysis for the next likely 5 to 10 days to come. Anyways, with that in mind, we're actually going to come back here into the crown trading application a little bit later. What I want to do right here is start off immediately with the with price action charts. So I want to follow up on yesterday's short-term time frame analysis. We actually did see a break above the top side of yesterday's short-term time frame range, that being $37,000 on a 4-hour closure. Beautiful. And Bitcoin does initiate the next short-term move to the upside. That's your $38,000 to $38,500 target. Although I would be looking for this again to very likely find its way somewhere around this blue box territory right here. Elsa's sign in the background, she's having a difficult morning, but that's okay. Toss a coin to your Witcher and it'll be all right. Anyways, looking at this right now, there's very likely going to be pullbacks along the way. But here's the thing. When you do have a move like this coming into an event like today, I don't really trust it all that much. And I would say that what's even more important right here is going to be the invalidation of this, of this as a particular setup. Because, most people are probably looking at something relatively similar to this, and what would essentially invalidate this. This would be probably reasonable to do on an hourly. On an hourly, I would say a closure below about 36,300 would do it for me, or a 4-hour closure just below the breakout point, which would be about just below $37,000 would likely do it for me as well. And if that does happen, I'd be looking for Bitcoin to once again explore around its current lows. I would not call a continuation to new lows, however, just yet, or immediately in this case. I'd just be looking for a move somewhere down around about $33,500 to $34,000 base. Very likely another bounce there, and then come back and reanalyze it. I do not think it would be wise to be doing anything more than that. And what I want to check out over here on our daily time frame is once again this. Yes, the daily jewel light has lost its downside curvature, and when it turns white, we do look at that as a as a good indication of a loss of momentum plus volatility on, in this case, the downside move. With it now pointed up, obviously you're gonna have a chance to get an you're gonna have a chance to get an upside signal. Problem with this one is that when you look at this in terms of volatility, which right now volatility is around the highs, about 90 percentile or so, which is getting to extremes. The last time we saw it somewhere around this was actually in December, and then of course before that was our October, I believe, highs in that case right there. And then before that was the July bear trap right here. Again, volatility is direction neutral, so we've seen that both come to the upside and the downside. In this case, to the downside, that probably doesn't have too much more to go. So this is still very likely a corrective move. So whilst I do think that Bitcoin could have a very easy chance to continue on with the rally here, maybe even towards $40,000 or so, overall, I do look at this as a corrective rally off of the downside moves until one of the more critical regions is taken out to the upside, specifically for the long term. Until that happens, which we'll go over that number exactly in a second here, but until that happens, very important. It is difficult to be looking at this asset as, well, long-term bullish in this case. I mean, it is consolidating. I wouldn't say it's consolidation at best, but it is at best trading sideways in a massive range between about $30,000 and about $60,000. And at worst, we are seeing, we are seeing a long-term distribution start to emerge. Anyways, what would that level be? Well, your first major area would of course be the $44,000 lower high that we did see in January earlier this month. That would be the 0.5 Fibonacci retracement right here as well. Again, $44,000. That is not the big one, however, because typically speaking, when we are within the midst of a potential trend reversal, which is happening on the weekly right here, we do have a lower low on the weekly compared to the September lower low right here. We do not have a lower high just yet. So in this case, while the daily can very easily play out a rally, maybe over the next couple of weeks here, it would be pertinent to be aware that the weekly putting in a lower high anywhere below, basically about $55,000 or so, would be that confirmation of a weekly trend shift. And if we do have a weekly trend shift confirmation, then all weekly trend changes in Bitcoin land have correlated perfectly to the macro direction since the dawn of time. Yes, at some point this will not work out, but if this does have a 12 or 13 year great history of working out, I'm going to go with that until proven otherwise. So where would that level be essentially from this perspective? Well, if we do throw back on our drawing tools, you can see that I've done a nice little Fibonacci retracement right here. And traditionally speaking, you do expect those lower highs in a bull trap scenario somewhere between the 0.5 and the 618. So that would be between about $44,000 and $48,500. So I want to have that in the back of my mind's eye here because that can very easily set up Bitcoin, for one of these LARP line rallies right here. But if you see weakness within this region, and then Bitcoin turns down something like this, and then most importantly cracks back down below the 382 right here at $40,000 even, that's going to be your big confirmation, or at least I wouldn't say your, because I can't speak for you, but for myself as a long-term, or if I'm looking at this from a long-term perspective, I look at that as confirmation of, okay, this is incredibly bearish long-term. We're very likely going to see at best a range between about $45,000 and $30,000 for 6 months, and then very likely break down somewhere around, well, obviously $30,000 is a major area, but more importantly, $25,000 does become a more reasonable target at that point, somewhere between about $22,000 to $25,000, which is where I actually do think is the worst case scenario for Bitcoin at this point in time. The hopium, however, is that after a move like this, you do set in a higher low anywhere above $40,000 and do something like that. That would be your confirmation, or at least my confirmation of Bula markets back on. I don't think that happens anytime soon. This move would theoretically happen over, I think, at minimum the next 3 months, or sorry, not even 3 months, like 5 months into at the end of Q2 of this year. I do think it's the kind of earliest that you'd see something like this happen. Anyways, with that in mind, I do want to bring up a few points of hopium right here, following up on the last few weeks of analysis. We are starting to see once again the 5-day stochastic momentum, which actually just closed last night. So we got a new dildo today, and that will actually close and turn up in the next 5 days. So not today. If we see any sort of a 5-day closure above 35,300. Daily has also freshly turned up for the first time since the last rally attempt in early January, that is, and that will be remaining with upside momentum as long as Bitcoin is closing above 34,713. Buy daily is also about to cross up as well above 37,250. So all higher term timeframes starting to work in unison with each other. The weekly is not quite there just yet. Obviously, we just got a new one in the last 48 or about 36 hours or so, and that will be turning up with any sort of a weekly closure above $45,000. So if we do start to see all these things turn around the same time over these next, let's say 2 weeks, I'd say about 2 weeks, that would be a really good indication that this is still a beacon of hopium, in the future. But for right now, I do want to also, focus on the very high term timeframes in this case. Up to now, we've only spoke up to a weekly. Here's what does make me concerned, and here's what does make me consider that the downside is still actually a little bit more likely long term. So we're really divorcing this analysis now from the short term, which could very easily extend this bounce to some pretty impressive targets, 39, somewhere between $39,000 and $40,000. Quite easily wouldn't really make all that much of a difference actually for the long term of this. But if we go over here to the monthly, you'll notice that the monthly stochastic momentum will turn down officially with any sort of a closure, not today, but at the end of this month, which is we're at the 26th of January right now. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days left of trading in this month. Technically, it's going to be like 5.5 because it does close like, a little bit before that. Anyways, in this case, we will see stochastic momentum turn to the downside below 53,520. What's also important about this is that you will also be losing the bullish control zone in this case, which the last time we saw some similar to this was, even just downside from this region was back on over here in March 2018. That sounds familiar. Well, maybe not for everyone, but certainly for myself, way back on over here on the essential bull trap from the 2018 cycle. cycle. The time before that was way back on over here, actually, February of 2014. Again, the bull trap of the 2014 cycle, essentially. We can even take that a couple more steps further as well if we go over here into this chart. On the monthly MACD, or sorry, on the monthly charts right here, you will notice that monthly MACD is about to cross to the downside. Again, same time frame closure as we just spoke about on the monthly stochastic momentum, and it will officially cross the downside with any sort of a closure this month below 40,750. Very, very important number right there. We've seen this only happen 1, 2, 3 times in the past, of which all of them have been some pretty catastrophic moves to the downside. The last one, funnily enough, or maybe not funnily enough for a lot of people out there, is going to be, of course, actually right here. Sorry, my line is a little bit off, but that would be a couple months before the flu dump that we saw in March 2020. The time before that was, of course, right here in June 2018. Again, coming off the white 20 simple, but over the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months, there's your next 50% dumper all the way down to the green 55. And then, of course, the time before that was way back on over here in 2014, August. Again, same thing, coming off the white 20 simple and, you know, bounced around for a couple months and then all the way down to the green 55 yet again. And we have a very similar setup going on over here now, don't we? We see Bitcoin is bouncing off the 20 simple. Okay, there's, you know, this bounce can take us, I mean, we're talking about big numbers here. This bounce can easily take us like $10,000 or so. But assuming that this does get confirmed, I would say that that is a good cause for concern over the long term, as well as the PMAR signal over here as well. You can see that this one has lost the moving average on this signal once, twice, and now working on thrice. In the 12 or 13 year history of Bitcoin right here, and those have all been accompanied with the same signals on the MACD. Now, it doesn't have as many iterations as the MACD signal does have, but the two prior to the one that we're looking at right now do have the same sort of indication, do correlate with the same areas on this breakdown right here and this breakdown right here, of course, and also this one right here actually just freshly happening. So I do think that that is a bit more long-term cause for concern, but again, that does not mean that Bitcoin can't rally up even into the end of this month. Damn it, I'm just drawing damn lines over here. Let me get rid of the LARP lines as well. But basically, you know, motherfucker, I just got rid of the one that I actually want there. There we go. All right, apologies on that. Let's get rid of this one right here. Boom, and I'll get rid of this one right here as well. So basically, the way that I want to kind of now bring this back into normality for the more shorter term timeframes is to go back on over here into the short term timeframes like the 4 hour. And what do we see? We actually see Bitcoin catching a little bit of a sell action right there, which is not great for the short term, obviously. And this is why I really want to stay away from the short term timeframes leading into an event like this, because ranges and whatnot, resolutions are probably going to be a bit, a bit shaky and probably going to be more trappy than anything else. And in this case, with Bitcoin moving to the upside first ahead of an announcement like this, I typically don't like something like that, to be honest with you. I actually look at that as typically a bad thing. I would not say that that is a verifiable statement. I would say that this becomes a lot more compelling when Bitcoin, or if and when Bitcoin does close a 4 hour dildo just below the breakout point from, I guess this was earlier today or I guess late yesterday, whatever it was, like right around here, just below $37,000 would do it for me on a 4 hour closure, or an hourly below, I think it was more like 36 actually. I'd say more like 36. If one of those two things happens, I'd be looking for Bitcoin to once again explore somewhere around the low side of our closing bases from the last few days here, somewhere between about $33,500 to $34,000. Until then, I would actually, I can't advise anything, obviously. Like, I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice, but I can tell you what I'm doing in this case. I am, very much avoiding trading until we see the result of this event a little bit later today, because at the end of the day, it would be essentially gambling in the way that I look at things. Because why? Well, it's quite simple, because I don't know what the fuck they're going to do, and there's absolutely no way to know what they're going to do or say. And in this case, if we are just going off a straight technical analysis, there actually are several good things right now to say that this a bit of a mean reversion trade right here on momentum is starting to end on the short-term timeframes like the 4 hour. You can see that 4 hour stochastic momentum will actually turn down officially below 36,320. I think bi-hourly is already turning down. Let's just double check. Yeah, it is turning down right now below 37,300, but you're actually trading above right now. So, these criteria have not been met. They're just present and I think relevant for the time being. And the hourly will also turn down below 37,250 as well. Again, so kind of balancing it out. Very short-term timeframes, looking a little bit more like, momentum's going to come into play here. The medium and higher term timeframes, still do suggest that if Bitcoin does come back down to the current base lows, probably get another big bounce somewhere right around there, and maybe sets it up for the next couple of weeks of price action to come. And then the real question is, where do the monthlies settle? Because right now the monthly settling basically, especially below $40,000, is going to be rather concerning for the long term. Again, that doesn't mean that Bitcoin can't rally up to about $44,000, maybe even $48,000, but I'd essentially be looking at those areas as major, at least for myself, they would be major sell areas for potentially even long-term trades. Anyways, going off of it right here, to kind of round out why I do think that Bitcoin $25,000 is, probably worst case scenario in this one. Green 55 exponential average on the monthly is typically where we do see our long-term macro corrections down towards. You can get closures around there, but anywhere around there's, typically fair game, or at least a good value play. For like the macro, when I'm talking about macro, I mean like years essentially. And in this case, that's crawling its way up just above, just around about $22,500 right now. Obviously, that's going to change in the next few months as it does get dragged up and up. So the longer that Bitcoin holds sideways here between about 60 and 30, the more and more naturally that'll get dragged up. Of course, it should also be known that the weekly 200 simple is kind of crawling its way up as well in the same vicinity of that. And for right now, we did close the 5-day yesterday, and this does look like Bitcoin actually finally got a little bit of a reprieve right there. So I'm curious to see if there's anything else that I'm missing right now. Yeah, I did miss this 5-day Jewel Light is going to it's actually still remaining with its downside slope and its downside momentum and volatility as well. So I'd actually say that is somewhat concerning. However, we can see from a historical perspective, when it gets into this range right here, which actually does have a little bit lower to go, to be fair, from a historical perspective, it really doesn't stay down there for too long. We really only have 1, 2, 3 iterations of it even being around this low. One of them was January 2019. That was your 3100 cycle, 3100 macro cycle lows, actually. The time before that was October 2014. That, I believe, was, let's just double check. I want to ensure that I'm talking about the right thing. Yeah, this was actually a bull trap right here, to be fair. This was actually a bull trap right here. And the time before that was actually this intra-cycle correction. I wouldn't say correction, crash is the right terminology, in July 2013, before going from about $69, great number, all the way up to almost $1,400. It looks like 1337, which is LEET. It's gamer speak for LEET. Anyways, okay, I think I've spoken your head off on this right now. 17 minutes into this one. I do want to now swing back around to the Crown Trading application. I want to also show you, before I show you that, let's talk about the global open interest. I think this is perhaps the most important indicator, honestly. It's the one indicator that has been consistently saying, hey, look, this asset is cautious at best and downside is more likely than upside, until we do see essentially this, this chart reset, which I think that we're in the midst of doing right now, or in the context of like the last 2.5 months, but it can take longer, is my point. Anyways, I won't go through the whole rigmarole on this one. You can always check out the long-term analysis video that I put out on Sunday, which I do every Sunday, that will go over these sort of topics. But basically, anytime that we've seen open interest get above 13 billion, it's led to a 20 to 25% correction minimum, and at maximum we've seen like 50% correction. Anyways, just call it this area right here. Obviously that's March and April, both humongous moves to the downside. September, and more recently at the all-time highs in November, and then of course also getting above there almost towards 14 billion in December, late December, that is, early January. So I do think that this is resetting yet again. Obviously we've already kind of seen about, I believe, a 20% move. Yeah, we've certainly seen a 20% move from that failed high right here, down to kind of where we're at right now. Yeah, 25% move right there. So does Bitcoin set up for a bit of an interim balance here, but continue on with a long-term downtrend, because Bitcoin does certainly have that, especially as long as we're below $44,000 by golly. But in this case right here, the lower the better, essentially. And while I don't actually have a good idea or any real way to really nail down like a specific number here, I would say, or at least I would think intuitively, so understand where I'm kind of deriving this from and then make your own conclusions with this, because there's no way for me to know. But basically, I would consider a reset if we do see open interest essentially settle somewhere between the summer lows at about 5.5 billion and our September lows right here at about 8.5 billion, that is. So anywhere between those two numbers, I do think is probably where you find the macro major bottom in that case. But for right now, you can and well, you can very easily see that it's already at 10.25 billion, or a little bit above there, and actually rising as of this moment. So to me, this looks, or not to me, this is validated right here. It looks like, or it would appear that people are putting on leverage positions, probably long in this case, seen as futures are trading above spot right now on the old 100x exchanges. By the way, check out Bybit link. Go get wrecked over there. It's beautiful. Just kidding. Don't fucking do that. Anyway, terrible thing to be saying. But overall, it does look like people are leveraging long into an event like this today. That's usually not the best way to start your long-term macro reversals, in my experience. On top of that, I do want to call out another thing that is a little bit more on the bullish side. That would be the funny rates right here. You can see that it's actually negative 0.01%. So this is the lowest that we've seen it on this read for the last month, I think. Yeah, for the last month or so. If we go down to an hourly data feed, it's actually significantly lower than that on the global scale, negative 0.016%. So it is still likely, in my opinion, a little bit more likely that Bitcoin does move to the upside here, wash out the over leveraged and too aggressive shorts, the late shorters, and then deal with the long, spank them a little bit as well. Keep in mind as well here that the leverage ratio is to the moon and beyond. So that's always a great sign, but we do kind of expect it to be higher over time. Just in that case, fucking high, man, super fucking high. So what I've done over here on the notifications is I've actually gone into the Crown Trading application. Again, you can find this all for free in the link in the description below. And I've actually set some alerts here, which is going to be absolutely pertinent to my own trading and analysis. But basically, I have an open interest alert for under 9 billion, and then I also want to have one for under about 7.5 billion as well, and save that. Thank you very much. Hey, that's not what no, that's not what I meant to do. Hold on, for some reason that didn't. Actually, hey, god damn it, motherfucker! I just done goofed right there. Jesus Christ, man, I can't even figure out my own shit. Apologies on that, but I do want to set this right here, right now. I'm just going to do below 8. How about that? There you go. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to my own application. Beautiful. All right, cool. So I think we've gotten everything that I wanted to get off right here. Kind of a long way of saying that short term, probably just waiting on today's event. It does look like Bitcoin is kind of in a bit of a precarious place right here. This will start to initiate a swing failure pattern with a 4-hour closure just below about let's call it 37,000. If you want to put like a very specific number on it, I'd say about 36,700 or so would do it for me. That would kind of be my short-term swing failure pattern. And at that point, we will have hidden bearish divergence, technically speaking, between this point, this local high that we saw back on over here at about 39,000 or 39,500, and where we're at right now, which would imply at least one more move down around the lows if that does get initiated. Until then, technically speaking, should be looking sideways and up. But with an event looming over our heads, I do not trust the short-term timeframes in the same way. I only trust the higher term timeframes as far as major macro levels go. I'm just looking for quick, easy trades around those on the periphery. I don't look to hold anything into an event like this. In fact, one of my rules as a trader, and this was consistent when I was trading in traditional markets as well, whenever I see an economic event like this, whenever especially the FOMC, I close all positions, about half a day leading into it, and then I look for the easy trades basically at like the 15 minutes to 30 minutes afterwards. Yeah, so there's typically some very, 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 very high volatility and usually some easy pickups. So with that in mind, I hope this one serves you well, and there you go for Bitcoin, sirs and zers.